Hi, I'm Todd Wilson, and it's the Georgia Journal. This week, we'll be taking you to the Warner Robins Museum of Aviation. We're taken to the skies. On display across the museum, you'll discover some historic warbirds that played significant roles in our nation and its efforts to win the Second World War, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, and the Cold War. There are also numerous artifacts and interactive displays that create an atmosphere that is not only entertaining, but educational. The Air Museum features climate-controlled buildings that house some of their exhibits, plus a lot full of aircraft to boot. And when you enter the Eagle building, you come face-to-face with an F-15 Eagle positioned in front of an image of a hangar. It signifies the role of the warfighter and the job keeping it airborne, a mission that's performed just up the road at Robins Air Force Base. Friendly volunteers are always on hand to assist and greet visitors and answer any questions. They even perform guided tours. There are currently 94 aircraft on display for visitors to get an up-close look. Some of the aircraft, like the B-52, the C-130, and F-15, still have versions on active duty. But the museum has plans to keep all their inventory preserved for generations to come. So says Air Museum Director Ken Emery.
Fortunately, the Museum of Aviation Foundation paid for and constructed the 60,000 square foot World War II hangar that we opened in 2008. Obviously, we need more hangar space to get aircraft in out of the weather and protect them from the elements. I tell folks that the museum program is a 200-year program, so we need to plan on preserving some of that Air Force history. In many ways, the only way we can do that is to bring it inside, protect it, and then at the same time display it and tell stories, do exhibits that explain the history of the Air Force and educate the public about what the Air Force is all about, where it's been, where it's going, and the future roles and missions.
One of the oldest aircraft at the museum hangs above the F-15 in the lobby of the Eagle building. It's a relic from the pre-World War II era. It's an old Boeing PT Stearman trainer. The prop-driven biplane allowed the instructor to sit behind his student and featured tandem controls. A few steps down one corridor and you're taken back to a pair of fighters which directly led to the defeat of the Axis forces in the Second World War. The aircraft you see behind me is a North American P-51D, better known as the Mustang. It was because of fighters like this that long-range escorts were provided to American bombers in World War II, helping pave the way to the Allied victory over Nazi Germany. The scene and artifacts depicted around the Mustang reflect a maintenance shop, along with period images, sounds, tools, and uniforms. A few steps further take you to the Asian Pacific Theater of Operations and a plane once flown by the famous Flying Tigers. One of the most famous in terms of local perspective would be General Robert Scott, who flew an aircraft just like this one, the Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, in his days with the Flying Tigers, some actions that inspired him to write the book, God is My Co-Pilot. More than being a hero from Macon, General Scott was a huge supporter of the museum in its early days. That is what Public Affairs Coordinator Bob Dubiel recalls of the late general.
This is one of our greatest exhibits here in the museum, dedicated to a World War II ace from Macon, Georgia, General Robert L. Scott, Jr. He came to the museum actually after he retired from the Air Force in 1957. He tried all these things. He wanted to do things like hunt elephants and walk the Great Wall of China and keep flying airplanes after he was retired. But he found out about the museum. He came here. He brought all of his stuff. He was with us for 20 years, and he passed away 5 years ago now in this month, February. And he was just a great supporter of the museum, and we still revere his memory and all that he meant to Macon and this museum. And this exhibit is just very unique. You won't find anything like this anywhere else in the world, really. It tells Scott's story from when he was a small boy to when he wrote his book. He flew with the Flying Tigers in China in 1942 and 43, and he came back and wrote this book called God is My Co-Pilot. It was an instant bestseller in World War II, and it became a movie. And the movie premiered in Macon, Georgia at the Grand Theater. And we have And we have pictures of that day here in Macon when that movie premiered. It was a huge crowd, a huge event in Macon.
And General, of course, continued to fly after serving in the U.S. Army Air Corps and then the U.S. Air Force, and even well after his retirement. General Robert Scott, just one of the many heroes who flew, crewed, or maintained the many historic planes at the Museum of Aviation. The exhibit on the famous general includes many photos, books, memorabilia, and even a copy of the Great Wall of China in miniature, in which the general walked and rode a camel the entire 2,000-mile length when he was 72. His trip took 93 days. In fact, on his 89th birthday, he celebrated by piloting a B-1B. General Scott passed away back in 2006 and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Hey, when we come back, we'll see more of what you can experience at the Air Museum when Todd Wilson's Georgia Journal continues.